So this morning I'm going to discuss a topic that some of my U.S.-based clients run into quite often, and that is when they're needing to staff foreign local talent offshore, and not an expatriate situation when we're actually wanting to hire a local tax practitioner, usually in one of two areas: indirect taxes or a combination thereof of U.S. tax accounting and reporting support. Those are two key areas, and then of course tax planning on a regional basis, EMEA, heads of tax planning, or Asia Pac and such. So a couple of things to discuss in this area. I'm going to reference an article that I just put together with Tax Talent and will be published regarding the concepts of revolving around the three main obstacles I see that U.S. companies run into when trying to staff tax professionals offshore on a foreign local basis. So the first one is, unfortunately, a lot of the foreign local talent that is out there, we work jointly with a BPA or Barry Palin and Associates firm on alliance. We've done this for 15 years, and Barry will always tell me that the foreign candidates, perceive the U.S. not respecting the indirect tax area, putting emphasis on U.S. tax reporting, and of course, on the planning side of the fence, the international cross-border planning they get. The U.S. firms get that, but a lot of times they undervalue the indirect tax area. So a couple of things to keep in mind there. That's a sensitivity that these candidates will have, so be aware of it. So it's one of the obstacles. Second one is the fact that the complexities, while they're there is a cultural issue, non-tax technical, that you guys need to be factoring in. We in the U.S. tend to be a little more direct, as we all know, a little more bottom line oriented. And this has changed some degree because U.S. companies have really gotten out there and aggressively staffed up. So it's not as much as it used to be, but it still is there. You need to vet and screen for the cultural differences and be prepared. These candidates are a little more, let's say, sensitized towards our cultural situation. So you want to desensitize that in your recruiting process. I'll talk about that in a minute. And I think, the commonly held belief of upward mobility, advancement opportunity, that's another issue. A lot of times they go into a U.S. company and they don't know where they'll go advancement-wise. They can maybe grow within the European tax structure if it's a bigger company, or the Asia Pac region tax structure. But longer term, unless they're willing to relocate, there's this sensitivity about, am I going to be at a dead end at some point? And while I think there's certainly that reality that if you're U.S.-based, you're probably going to want the tax leaders to be based in the U.S., that is starting to change a little bit as well. But for the most part, there's a legitimate concern, and we'll talk about how you handle that as well as far as long-term upward mobility. So let's go back and start with the sensitivity towards the tax technical areas of indirect tax. I think more and more we're moving towards a sensitivity towards this, and I think the U.S. just needs to show it more to the foreign candidates, that they are aware of the large amounts of money that can be generated or saved there by focusing on indirect taxes, and it's not all about income tax and direct taxes. I think that's just how you advertise the position, how you socialize it, make sure that you get your point across, that you are aware of it, and it has a high value proposition in the organization, and this will drop their guard there. Also, tax reporting, explaining that they're picking up the U.S. tax reporting side, a gap besides the IFRS, is going to make them more marketable in their career from a market perspective. So there are quite a large number of U.S.-based companies now staffing up globally. I think that's going to continue. And I think that's a large percentage of the available jobs out there. So you're going to need to sell that proposition to them, that picking that up is going to be highly valuable to them. The cross-border international, I think, is easy to sell to the candidates, and the fact that there's a sensitivity towards the U.S. tax position, again, only makes them more marketable in the broader market scheme. So U.S.-based companies as well as foreign-based companies will be interested in their skill set. Cultural differences, of course, I think it's essential that we all improve our cultural sensitivity. And I think anybody that's either in Europe or Asia Pac or Latin America, their ability to adjust to the U.S. culture here is critical. It's another feather in their cap. It makes them more attractive, more marketable. You need to sell that to them. And then, of course, you on the other side of the fence, you need to work on your development to be more sensitized towards people that might come from certain regions of the world where culturally you have to be pulled back a little bit more than we tend to be. Long-term advancement opportunity and ability to be, groomed, and this being a valuable opportunity for them. I think you speak in the broader terms of the market. Once again, this will build their equity out there. They'll have more opportunities long-term. You also can play the potential, if your company is open to looking at people outside of tax that come from a tax background, with a lot of my clients are doing that now. They might bring somebody in. We have one client right now where we're focused on somebody who is really a great transfer pricing international tax planning person, but there's a couple of roles outside of tax and finance that would be very attractive to this candidate longer term, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And we're using that to attract the candidate to the opportunity. I think you need to look at the broader roles within your organization outside the U.S. that you might use to attract these candidates. So that's a quick summary of the 3 issues I think a lot of our clients run into, and then some solutions and ideas to help you with. Please reference back to our article. We will attach that here in this piece, and you guys can take it from there. The article's titled Overcoming the 3 Most Common Obstacles When Recruiting Overseas Tax Professionals to American-Owned Companies, and that will be published through Tax Talent. We'll have a link to that. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.